Hello viewers, this is the third episode of our unit of surface coatings. In the previous sessions, we have learnt about introduction and historical background of surface coating. We have also discussed about objectives of surface coating, their classification, various types of surface coating like electroless plating, electroplating and vapor deposition method and many more methods we have learnt and their applications also. Now, in this lecture, we will be discussing about the organic coatings. In the organic coatings, we will be discussing about the most important type of organic coating, paints. We will learn about details of paints, what are the various constituents of paints and drying of oils and solvent evaporation also. Now, if we revise the classification of organic coatings, then we can see the organic coatings can be divided into many categories. Most important of these is paints. Apart from paints, varnishes, enamels and many more types of lacquers etc. they are covered under the heading of organic coatings. If we see the use of paints, it can be for the interior of the buildings or for the exterior also. In the interior, for the walls, we use distemper, luster, enamels, emulsion. For the metallic portion, we use enamels. For the wood finish is being used. For the exterior part, emulsion, texture and cement paints are being used. Now, what is paint? Paint is mechanical dispersion mixture of one or more pigments in a vehicle, which is again a new term. Vehicle is liquid consisting of non-volatile film forming material. This is also known as film former. It consists of drying oil and a highly volatile solvent, that is thinner. After application of paint, thinner evaporates and drying oil slowly oxidizes, forming a dry pigmented film. What are the requisites of a good paint? A good paint should possess the following characteristics. It should be fluid enough so that it can be spread easily. It should possess good covering power. It should be quite tough, uniform so that can be spread smoothly. It should be adherent so that long lasting and impervious. It should be glossy, stable and easily applicable also. Now, here we can see how a good paint can change entire look of a house. Here we can see the various types of paints, stucco paint, texture paints, stone paints which are being used nowadays. Now, coming to the technical part of the paint. What are the various components of the paint? These are pigment, vehicle or drying oil, thinner, dryer, filler, plasticizer and anti-skinning agent. Now, first of all, we will be learning about the pigment. Pigment is the solid substance and most essential constituent of paint. It should have following characteristics. First of all, it should be opaque and of course inert and non-toxic. It should be freely mixable with vehicle and cost effective also. If we are using it on the exterior part, then it should be weather resistant and aesthetically appealing also. If we want to color a substance white, then pigment is the thing which will impart the color. For the white color, pigment used are white lead or zinc oxide, lithopone or titanium oxide. For the green color, we can use oxides of chromium. For the blue color, we can use Prussian blue. Now, we can see here components of the auto paint. In the auto paints, resin, here it is being mixed with the pigment for color and metallic flakes to give it metallic luster and mica flake. These are all together mixed and finally they are being sprayed on the auto part. Resin is the glue of the paint, which is a complex binder in which the pigment, metallic, mica all are suspended. Now, we will see what is vehicle or film former. This is basically polymer resin or binder. It provides the basis of a continuous film, which is very important. It varies in chemical composition according to the end use. Another component of vehicle is solvent. Solvent is the means by which the paint may be applied. Solvent is not present in case of powder coatings or in case of 100% polymerizable systems. For the vehicle, we use natural oils, gums, resins and their combined use. It gives them drying property. These are basically glyceryl esters of high molecular weight fatty acids. They can be from animal source or vegetable source. Here we can see the structure of fatty acid. Here value of the N may be 32, 30, 28 or 26. This value clearly indicates that this fatty acid is unsaturated one. Here we can see the percentage composition. In the tongue oil, saturated acids will be 6%, oleic acid will be 7% and 9 to 12 linoleic acid will be 4% or 9, 12, 15 linolenic acid will be 3% and like that. Here 80% will be the percentage of conjugated acid. Here percentage of various acids in different types of oil, linseed oil, soybean oil, castor oil, dehydrated castor oil, tall oil and coconut oil are given here. Here we can see in the coconut oil percentage of saturated acid is highest. Now, drying oil, semi-drying oil and non-drying oil all are used for a vehicle. A particular oil is drying oil, semi-drying oil or non-drying oil. It depends on its ability to oxidize or cross-link on its own. It also depends on concentration of fatty acids and their unsaturation. This unsaturation is the very important. At least 50% of the polyunsaturated fatty acid should be present for a good drying oil. Example of good drying oil is linseed oil, which consists of 60% linoleic acid or linolenic acid. Tall oil, this is also used as a vehicle. This is byproduct of paper industry. Coconut alkyds, they are also being used as vehicle for enamels, etc. Use of blended oil is very common. We can get appropriate drying property by mixing the two type of oils. Oils are purified by acid or alkali, then they are used for coating. Stand oil, this is also very important. Drying oil may be heat bodied in the range of approximately 290 degrees Celsius to produce the Stand oil. Viscosity is increased due to dimerization reaction through double bonds of unsaturated fatty acids, and iodine value is decreased. Iodine value basically shows the presence of unsaturation in a fatty acid. Stand oils are used in oleoresinous vehicles and alkyd resins. We can compare here drying oils and semi-drying oils. They dry quickly in air to form adherent and horn-like films. So, they are called drying oils, and as it is clear from its name, semi-drying dry very slowly in the air. Drying oils are composed of high percentage of conjugated fatty acids, esters of glycerol. These are composed of low percentage of conjugated fatty acid ester or high percentage of single double bond containing fatty esters of glycerol. Drying oils are used in paints. However, semi-drying oils are not used alone. They are used as blending agent. Linseed oil, tung oil, perilla oil, these are the examples of drying oil. For the semi-drying, soya bean oil, rosin oil, fish oil, they fall in this category. Drying oil supplies to paint film. They are basically main film forming constituent. They act as a vehicle or medium. They provide toughness, they provide adhesive power to the paint and durability, and of course waterproofness also. Reactions in drying of oils. The oil film, after it has been applied on the protected surface, absorbs oxygen of the air at the double bond. As we already learnt that these oils are unsaturated one. Unsaturated means they possess double bonds. Thus, they form peroxides across the double bond. They form diperoxides and hydroperoxides. Then they isomerize, polymerize and condense together to form a characteristic tough, coherent, hard, elastic, insoluble, infusible, highly cross-linked, structured macromolecular film. Here we can see the reaction. Here we can see the conjugated double bond here and here, here also. So many conjugated double bonds are present. In the presence of air, it will be, here we can see they are being polymerized, peroxides and hydroperoxides are being formed, and we are finally getting a highly cross-linked structure. We can further understand the drying of a paint film. This is the base material. Now, wet paint film means oil together with pigment. Then in the presence of extender, dryer and thinner, they are all being applied on the surface of base material. After some time, thinner is being evaporated. Now, what is being left? Film of oil, pigment and dryer. Now, further oxidation and polymerization of oil under the catalytic influence of the dryer will take place, and we will get highly cross-linked structure at the surface of base material. Now, next component of the paint is thinner. They reduce the viscosity of the paint to the suitable consistency so that it can be easily handled and applied on the surface. Thinner dissolves vehicle and the additives present in the vehicle. So, we can see if thinner is not added, then we cannot dissolve and our paint will not work. It increases the penetrating power of the vehicle. It also increases the elasticity of the paint film. It helps in drying of the paint film as they evaporate. Common thinners which are being used in the paints are turpentine oil. They are produced by the distillation of resinous exudation of some kind of pine trees. Mineral spirits from petroleum also we can recover the turpentine oil. Benzene, this is also being used as thinner. Dipentene, naphtha, toluol, xylol, kerosene and methylated naphthalene and many more solvents. Next component of the paint is dryer. Dryer are basically oxygen carrier catalyst. They accelerate the drying of the oil film through oxidation, polymerization and condensation. Thus, their main function is to improve the drying quality of the oil film. The most effective dryers are resinates, linoleates, tungstates and naphthalinates of cobalt, manganese, lead and zinc. So, we can see here many transition metals are being used. Cobalt, resinates or linoleates, they are very efficient of all and they act as surface dryers. Lead substances are bottom dryers and manganese substances are thorough dryers. Now, presence of too much of dryer tends to produce hard and brittle film. So, quality of our paint will be affected. Next constituent of paint is extender or filler. These are basically coarse particle inorganic matter. They are low refractive index materials, generally of white color. They are added to reduce the cost, to provide negligible covering power to the paint. They help to reduce the cracking of dry paint film and sometimes help to keep the pigments in suspension. They are used for a wide range of purposes including opacity, to facilitate sanding, for example in primer coats. Extenders serve to fill voids in the film. They increase random arrangement of pigment particles. They act as carrier for the pigment color. So, you can see how much important these fillers are. Plasticizers. They are sometimes incorporated in the paint to provide elasticity to the film. Since they provide elasticity, so they minimize cracking of the film. Common plasticizers used are tricrysyl phosphate, triphenyl phosphate, tributyl phthalates, diamyl phthalate and dibutyl tartrate. Anti-skinning agents. They are also added sometimes to some paints with the object of preventing gelling and skinning of the paint film. Important anti-skinning agents are polyhydroxyphenol. Now, we can see the contribution of major paint components to final paint properties. Here we can see vehicle or film former. This is the major contributor as far as the convenience of application of a paint is concerned. Pigment, this plays minor role, and solvent, this also plays major role as vehicle plays. As far as cure rate is concerned, again the vehicle plays the major role, pigment has no role and solvent also plays significant role. Mechanical properties of the paint. Here again vehicle or film former, this is the most important, pigment being the less important. Durability of a paint, here vehicle as well as pigment both plays major role. Now color of the paint, as it is clear, this is the pigment which will play the major role in deciding the color of a paint. Now the cost, this is the very important component. Here film former and pigment both are the major contributor as far as cost is concerned. Solvent evaporation from coating, this is very important as viscosity of the solvent, thickness of the coating and its application method. These are all very important if we are considering the solvent evaporation from a coating. Initially it depends on vapor pressure of the solvent, but once the paint has been applied, after some time when polymer film is being formed, evaporation depends on diffusion. Flash point of the solvent, this is also very important if we are considering the manufacture, transport, handling, storage and use of solvent products, as it deals with the safety of the solvent. Now what is the flash point? Flash point is the lowest temperature at which a liquid in contact of air can be ignited by spark or flame. So this basically decides the inflammability of a solvent. If flash point is low, that solvent will easily catch fire. So it will not be safe to transport or to store or to handle. Formulation of paints. Manufacture of paints depends upon proper composition of paint to meet the specific requirement. Now, if we want to apply paint on the surface of building, then purpose is different, and if we want to coat surface of a metal, then purpose is different. So, depending upon the purpose, composition will be affected. These requirements basically are hiding power. Basic purpose of a coating is to hide a substance, to cover it properly. Then of course to impart color. So it should be color fast, weather resistant also, and for proper application method it should be consistent. These requirements are met by proper choice of pigments, vehicles and extenders by the paint formulator. Most important concept for a modern paint formulator is pigment volume concentration. Here we can see, depending upon the composition, proportion of resin, metallic and pigment, type of paint is being changed. PVC, which is the concentration by volume of the pigments, is expressed as a percentage of the total volume of non-volatile constituents of the paint. As we know, non-volatile volume in a paint is the sum of the volumes of pigment and non-volatile vehicle. Therefore, PVC can be expressed mathematically as volume of pigment in paint divided by total volume of non-volatile constituents of the paint. Here we can see total volume of non-volatile constituent means pigment plus non-volatile vehicle. Now we will learn about importance of PVC. PVC largely controls factors such as gloss, washability, adhesion and durability of a paint. Thus, if PVC is increased, gloss will be decreased. Therefore, paint will become flat. Increase in PVC, the relative quantity of binder will be decreased. Therefore, adhesive power and durability of a paint film will also be decreased. Here we can see high quality paint and cheaper quality paint. How the composition of high quality paint and cheaper quality paint differs. In the high quality paint, solids will be 31 to 46%. Solids means binder and pigment. They together constitute the solid constituents. In the cheaper quality, they will be less than 30%. So, remaining will be the carrier, additives and other type of agents. Failure of a paint film. A paint is considered as failed in the following areas. First of all, chalking. Chalking means progressive powdering of the paint film on the painted surface. It happens many times that paint becomes powdery substance. It occurs due to improper dispersion of pigment in vehicle or by destruction of binder by the continuous exposure to light. Flaking. This is peeling of the paint film for the painted surface. This takes place due to the presence of dust particles or greasy matter in the paint. These foreign matters result in poor adhesion of the paint to the painted surface. Next type of failure is cracking. Cracking is due to unequal expansion or contraction of different coats of paint, which is caused by variation of temperature of the exposed film. This defect can, however, be prevented by making the first coat a harder one. First coat is known as primer coat. Color change of the paint film. This happens after some time due to the chemical effect of the atmospheric gases. For example, white lead containing paint film tarnishes, it becomes blackish when exposed to atmosphere containing sulfur containing gases like hydrogen sulfide. Similarly, zinc oxide containing paint becomes yellowish. Failure of a paint can be prevented by scientific mixing and proportioning of the ingredients of proper characteristic. So, you can see proportion of the various constituent is very important. Using only suitable and selected paint for a particular job. We can prepare carefully the surface. It should be cleaned properly before applying any paint. Paint has to be applied properly and evenly. So, application method, this is again very important. By allowing each paint coat to dry sufficiently before the next coat is being applied. Now, we will revise whatever we have learnt so far. In this episode, we learnt about the most important type of organic coating, that is paint. Its various components, vehicle, pigment, thinners and many more. We also learnt about formulation of paint, how we can improve life of a paint, what should be the proper proportion if we want to get a proper performance by a paint. In the next lecture, we will be discussing about the other type of organic coatings like enamels, lacquers, emulsion paints, and we will be discussing about the environmental impact of the paints.